Vice President Mike Pence headlines Farm Bureau's Lansing Legislative Seminar.
This president and this entire administration have supported agriculture from the very beginning. And just as you've stood with us, I promise you, Michigan Farm Bureau, we will always stand with you.
While Lansing legislators talk infrastructure and how to fix it, and Michigan Agricultural Commodities Chris Betts will join us with a market update. I'm Janelle Brose, and this is Farm News 5.
Farm News 5 is brought to you by Ford.
The 48th Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, addressed Michigan Farm Bureau's Lansing Legislative Seminar Tuesday. Introduced by Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue and wearing his FFA tie. Pence spoke to MFB members for about 30 minutes, thanking them for their support and touting USMCA and other trade agreements.
And because of the strong stand that you took, because of the strong stand President Trump took, just a few short weeks ago, we signed the Phase 1 deal with China, dealing with intellectual property rights and securing $40 to $50 billion in agricultural exports to China in the next 2 years. It's a start. It's a start back. Now, we've got a ways to go. The President's made it very clear. As a part of the Phase 1 deal, we rolled back tariffs that the President had placed since September on imports from China, but the balance are all still there. And our teams are currently talking and negotiating, and I promise you we're going to continue to stand firm with China until we level the playing field for American agriculture, for American manufacturing, and for American workers. This president on trade is always going to put America first. And it's a huge win for American farmers. Make no mistake about it. We all know the USMCA corrected much of the imbalance in manufacturing now. We think we've removed many of the incentives, intentional or otherwise, that were in NAFTA to move jobs out of this country. We think we leveled the playing field, but this is a win. This is a win for agriculture as well. Canada's actually agreed to expand market access for American dairy, for egg, for poultry. American wheat growers will have access to a more level playing field, and we're going to sell $2.2 billion more in agriculture exports to Canada and Mexico alone. That includes $300 million in dairy exports in just the first few years. USMCA is a win for agriculture. I just want you to know that as you contribute to the vitality of this state and our nation, that your character and your faith contribute even more. So as I close, let me just say thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome today. Thank you for the privilege of serving as your vice president. It's the greatest honor of my life. It truly is. And to all of you who work in agriculture, whose labor and life's work can be found in the food that we eat and the character of this nation, thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you do.
Close to 400 farmers were on hand for Pence's speech, including brothers Larry and Tom Bodke, blueberry growers who farm in Van Buren and Allegan counties, and Brian Pridgeon of Hillsdale County's Pridgeon Farms. The three weighed in on the tone of Pence's speech and the possibility of another round of market facilitation program payments.
It was encouraging to hear him tell the story of agriculture. What gets lost is that it's still a family business, and so it was encouraging to hear the administration recognize the value of the family farmer and its importance to what we provide for this country. That was encouraging today to hear that story.
It was a wonderful opportunity to have both the Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, here, and the Vice President. Just reminds us once again how influential Farm Bureau is and how much as an organization working together we can have influence in our government.
We'd rather not have the aid. We'd rather get our revenue from the markets, but we understand when it comes to trade agreements, there's a lot of complexity to it, and we certainly appreciate the help when it comes, and hopefully eventually those trade agreements will bring us the revenue that we need.
There is a general feeling among these farmers that the next few years will be better than 2019.
The climate is dealing us a lot of challenges. And it's been a very wet last 2019, and going right through the winter, it's still wet, and it could create some challenges. But as farmers, we're always optimistic about what the next year holds, and we're looking forward to a good crop.
I thought what was encouraging is that we continue to make strides on the export markets. Being a hog farmer myself, we have a supply problem. The American pig farmer is doing a great job of producing pigs, and we need every opportunity to export that as we can get. So it's encouraging to hear all the wins that we're getting for free trade in Asia as well as with the USMCA. So 2020 should be a better year than 19.
If you want a car from a company that's been building them for 115 years, get a Ford. If you want a car with driver assist technology, get a Ford. You're gonna want a Ford.
Infrastructure, environment, and trade were hot topics during the Lansing Legislative Seminar. The Q&A panel discussion with 2 legislative leaders and 2 lawmakers with agriculture backgrounds led to a lengthy conversation with lawmakers offering their take on how to address the state's crumbling infrastructure.
So when it comes to infrastructure, believe it or not, my fight, though I'm from rural Michigan, is not pitting rural versus urban. We need to first fix the funding problem. And that's that nearly $900 million a year is paid at the pump that does not go towards roads. So if everyone in this room thought about, take the past 30 years and think about what $900 million a year would have done for our infrastructure today, we would not be in the same situation.
And when we talk about the long-term issue with our funding, we have to make sure that when you take off the sales tax at the pump, and I agree it's very clean, you can't do it on the backs of kids and teachers. So that $900 million goes to our schools. And we've already had study after study that says we are underfunding education. So when you take that off, you have to make sure that you have a way to generate new revenue to backfill that shift. So not only is it schools, that we all have schools where we live, but it's also local communities too, to be able to provide services. So we have to look at this in totality and say, what solves the problems that we have without creating new problems?
My constituents, no matter where they live, are quite concerned about education and skilled trades, and those dollars that we could be putting into roads would have to come out of somewhere else in our budget if we don't find a way to raise additional revenue. And then the question becomes, what is the fairest way to do that? So those are difficult conversations that we should be having on your behalf as our constituents. It is our responsibility to find those solutions.
The rural road funding issue is something that I take example we do in Ottawa County. In Ottawa County, we have a county millage for half a mil. That produces $5 million annually. I know this to the south of us, Allegan County, they have a millage and it produces even additional dollars. 20-some counties in the state have that type of component. If we would have matching dollars at the state level to a half a mil, that would require $350 million, and I believe that's possible here when we're talking these billions of dollars we do in Lansing.
Many farmers have questions about crop insurance. The sale closing date for crop insurance in Michigan is March 15th. Visit fosterswift.com to learn what Michigan farmers need to know about crop insurance in 2020.
The Excellence in Grassroots Lobbying Award recognizes a county farm bureau for exceptional advocacy efforts, such as building and nurturing relationships with elected officials, as well as educating and influencing them on legislative and regulatory issues important to our food and agriculture sector.
As a local, I'm especially proud to announce that this year's recipient is my own Kalamazoo County Farm Bureau. They've worked relentlessly to educate leaders about issues impacting the ag industry, with the aim of seeing our policy come to fruition.
The Kalamazoo County Farm Bureau received the award for advocating to the State Agriculture Commission to bolster the right to farm by voting to remove zoning conformance from the site selection GAMPs. Working with Congressman Upton on a roundtable event last summer meant to drive home the dire situation on the region's farms, brought about by adverse weather, by touring several area fields. Co-hosting a farm tour for elected officials with the local conservation district, and including elected officials at regular events like their monthly board meetings, policy development sessions, and the county annual meeting.
My experience with Kalamazoo County Farm Bureau has been phenomenal from day one. I will tell you that, what's been important to me is that I didn't really have a strong agricultural background. When I came into office, I didn't grow up on a farm. I didn't really have that experience as much, and so for me it was interacting with the members. It was speaking with them about what issues are important to them, about how what we do here in Lansing impacts their lives in my community, and how we can better create legislation that helps our local farmers.
And now with a look at the latest market activity, here is Michigan Ag Commodities' Chris Betts.
Thanks, Janelle. Outside markets weighed on commodities throughout the week as new cases of the coronavirus have been reported around the world. The spread of the virus has led to various levels of travel bans from individual businesses to state departments. Investors are feeling real economic impact from the virus at this point and being faced with the possible long-term implications. This led to equities suffering their worst week since the financial crisis of 2008, as traders head for the exits in search of safe havens like U.S. Treasuries. Commodities will need outside markets to find a floor to relieve further pressure, but for now, the unknown of the coronavirus is leaving significant downside risk in place. For more market information, go to michag.com. With Michigan Agricultural Commodities, I'm Chris Betts.
For more news and video, visit MichiganFarmNews.com and the Michigan Farm Bureau channel on YouTube. With Farm News 5, I'm Janelle Brose. Have a great week of farming.